team, and it's superficial. You guys, I don't know, Lynn, I don't know if you saw that chart where it showed that the ideological diversity on the right is larger than the ideological diversity on the left. Did you ever see that chart that came out a few months ago?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's an interesting yet flawed study, but it does kind of go into effectiveness that on the left there are things we disagree on, but they're not minutia. It's, should we have a state like state capitalism or socialism, stuff like that. On the right, they haven't come to a consensus on the shape of the planet, right? They're all over the place. They don't know what's going on. So, yeah, of course, they're able to be more willy-nilly about this because it doesn't matter. But the clip I'm going to show right here goes into what Lynn was discussing. So, did you guys get a chance to see that clip that I tagged you in on TikTok with that lady discussing Kerr County, Texas, and how they rejected the money from Joe Biden in the American Rescue Plan?
Did you tag me today?
Yeah, it was today.
I
She's
didn't notice
the
that.
poster child for what we were just saying.
Yeah, so she was
Definitely.
saying, yeah, that all these people that they were given a bunch of money, I think it was $5 million, maybe $10 million from the American Rescue Plan that they could have used to update their siren system. And they all rejected it. They said, no, we don't want it. We don't want any of Joe Biden's money. He's going to have all these strings attached to it. And I have a clip right here of these people at a meeting in Kerr County, Texas, telling the people in the board that they don't want the money at all. And you guys have got to hear this. If you guys haven't heard this, it's fantastic.
What gets me is you talk about spending this money on Kerr County infrastructure that's needed. This money wouldn't even exist if it hadn't been for the great scandemic. They created the problems that created the need, the shortage of tax funds and money. And you talk about 2022 and 2021, this might happen. I don't trust anything, including our elections, our Supreme Court. I mean, I know a lot of people my age are having a hard time admitting that this is happening in America in our lifetime. But these people are communists. They hate America. They're teaching it in our schools. They're invading the border as we speak. I don't think we should take any money from the federal government because they can't be trusted.
We do not want more of Biden's mandates attached to keeping Biden's money. But I am here to put each man on notice that if you vote to keep Biden's money, I will hold you personally responsible and personally liable for any and all harm that comes to I, a woman called Sherry Snyder, and the family of I, as well as the residents of this county.
I think the bottom line here is that we don't want this Biden money in our county. There's no such thing as free money ever. There are always strings attached. And the notion that we would keep the money in a separate account is not acceptable. We want you to send it back. The Biden regime has proven to be tyrannical and anti-American. There is no part of this administration that has the good of America or Americans at heart. We want no part in anything coming down from the federal government. This is Texas, and Texans can take care of Texas. The only guarantee we have of keeping Biden in DC and keeping Kerr County free of his overreach is by refusing the funds. We don't want them. If this body is not willing to reject the money in the first place, why would we believe you would fight for us against tyrannical mandates? The only way we know that this money isn't going to be spent is if it isn't there to spend. We do not want our need to raise the bar of spending here in Kerr County. Most everyone that I know feels that the tax burden here is already too high. And if we take these funds, even if there were no strings attached, it sets a precedent for higher spending, and that is not healthy for this county or its residents. We are looking for smaller government, not bigger.
This ARPA money, I think, is supposed to soothe our feelings or make us think the government cares about us after the pandemic, and we're not going to be soothed.
They lie. It's easy to lie. You get lawyers, they say fine print, all that kind of stuff. That's what's going to happen here. You're gonna, they're going to eventually come back with some lawyers. They're going to come out with another plan, another legal thing from Biden, and he's going to say you got to pay it. Everybody's going to have to get a shot. I'm not going to get a shot.
All right, we'll go to Lynn first. For those of you just joining in, that was Kerr County, Texas board meeting a few years ago when Joe Biden allocated $10 million for them to do things like update their infrastructure for better sirens, and they refused the money. They said, no, we'd rather not spend it because we're afraid of the federal government. I'll let you go ahead, Lynn. Had you seen that or heard about that?
I have heard about that. And I just want to start by saying it's your money. Let's just start there. Biden giving you money is not Biden's money. It's taxpayer money for you, for the things that you need. And it's just like it's hard to hear somebody eat their words so hard. It's hard. It's just like it's actually mind-boggling and bizarre to see somebody say something like that. And they're so sure of themselves. They're so sure. Oh, they're communists. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, and I just feel like at the end of the day, the people that are representing these individuals that do come to these town halls and say these things and be so sure of themselves, you're the person in charge, though. You're the person with the information. You're the person with the facts. They are always acting like, oh, well, if I don't do this and I don't do that, then I'm not going to get reelected. Like at the end of the day, when you don't do things, natural disasters happen and we're not prepared. People lose their lives. People lose their homes. People are losing because you're not making the executive decisions because you want to make decisions off people's feelings about ill-informed feelings at that. It is just like to sit there and hear somebody say that and then to know what has happened. And then the response that they're giving us now is as if I saw another clip where a lady was essentially saying like, don't leave us, like, don't leave us behind. Like we deserve for you to respond. But you're also a county that like doesn't want to pay taxes. You're also a county that is like spewing hate all the time. Why? And it's like, you deserve that because you're a citizen and you're a person, period, first and foremost, but you deserve that. But it's the fact that when the shoe is on the other foot, you don't want to do it. And it's so self-destructive that you do it to yourself as well, just for the satisfaction of saying, that's Biden's money. I don't want Biden's money. I don't want communist money. You sound ridiculous. And that is the consensus of what the United States is looking like right now. And it's hard for people like us to have a real conversation with these people. And it's like, I do have them, but it's like, I always try to never go where they're going because it's like, they need to understand that where they're going and what they're saying is just rooted in ignorance. And it's not a humane way to think. You want to be treated like a human, you need to treat other people like humans and not go and do these types of things at town halls and put your entire city, all your family, your whole community at risk over hatred.
It's weird too because it's not even just hatred. Like I wish it was as simple as, oh, these people are just racist, they hate brown people, they hate black people, that's why they're doing this. It is mass group psychosis. Like you heard them say there, that was, I imagine, 2021, 2022, something like that, right? And they're like, oh, the pandemic. It's like that happened under Trump, not like 1 to 2 years ago, and you're forgetting. You're just not remembering massive things that happened not that long ago. And it's very upsetting as someone who tries really, really hard, like you just said, Lynn, to talk to these people, to put these arguments in a way that they can understand and engage with. And it's just psychosis. It's just you're met with nothing that makes sense. They're not operating from any sort of rational ground where we can have a discussion because they're like, well, this is communism. What's communism? I don't know. It's tyrannical. What the hell did Joe Biden do that was tyrannical? Genuinely. And they'll say things like, oh, he let people invade. And it's like, okay. That's not true. But even if it fucking was, it's not fucking, it's not tyrannical to just, even if he had an open border, that's not controlling your life in any way, shape, or form. Like, what did Joe Biden do that impacted these people's lives? He didn't. Like, there just wasn't. It just didn't happen. And yet they truly, deep down, believe that Joe Biden was this authoritarian dictator, even though he didn't impact their lives. It's wild.
And to the extent that Biden did impact their lives, at least in this instance, it was to help them. That's that. It's like adopting like a rabid dog off the street, and you were trying to help this creature. You're like, listen, you need this help, and it just does nothing but snap at you and growl and bite at you. Except it's supposedly a member of a fairly intelligent member of the mammalian species, the same one that we're a part of, and they can't seem to figure it out. And what about that? There's a lot of that jumped out at me too. Is like I mentioned, this money. It was $10 million, I believe, that they sent and that they didn't want. They didn't want to send it back to the federal government. They didn't want to spend it, but they also didn't want to send it back because they were afraid that it would just go to help the blue states. That's another thing. So it's spite, as always, that drives them. They ended up spending it on the sheriff's department. That's what they ended up blowing the money on. And the sheriff's, of course.
Shocking.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they should in the sheriff's department because they need tanks or whatever in the street. And the funny thing is that they rejected the money that was sent there to help them because they were afraid that it would lead to getting them vaccines, which were also designed to help them. Like there's just, what are you supposed to do with that? And yes, I do. The vaccine is fascinating to me in a lot of ways because yes, not only did the pandemic happened under Trump, which makes you wonder, okay, if this is a giant government conspiracy, why did Trump go along with it? Why did he play ball? What the vaccine was developed under Trump. It was one of the few good things Donald Trump did. And it's honestly the only time. Maybe it'll change with Epstein. We'll get to that later, maybe. But it's the only time I've seen Trump try to brag about something and it was just rejected by the people in his cult in mass. That he never got them to give him credit or praise for that, even though he tried. He's oddly enough the most reasonable Republican when it comes to vaccines. The rest of them can't go along with it. And Lynn, you were saying that it's hard to listen to people eat their words, and yeah, they absolutely are. But they're not going to learn their lesson. That's the worst part about this. That all three of us know this. All three of us know nothing is going to change. They are still going to vote for Republicans. They're still going to be suspicious of federal money, their own money, well, mostly blue state money, but it's the money from the people. They're still going to be suspicious of that and live in accordance with this fantasy, like agrarian society that Thomas Jefferson imagined in 1820, as if that exists in the modern world. And yeah, they're not going to learn empathy from this, which is, I don't know what to do about that. Except, what do you guys think about this? I heard someone mention this a while ago. I don't know if we talked on the show, John, but we really need to have some uncomfortable conversations here, more uncomfortable than usual with the United States of America and how we move going forward. And that it really is time to cut red states off. And I understand this, that there are a lot of good people in red states. I'm not a person saying that, there's more Democrats in Texas than in probably half the country. I understand that. But if your state or your county votes against federal aid, I don't think you should get it. It just seems fair to me, right? Because how often do you see politicians they'll brag about, look at all the money we brought to the state here when they voted against us? No, you need to pay the consequences for this. It will take a long time. I don't think it will change an election cycle or 2 election cycles, but eventually, they need to learn the lesson. There's no way around it because you can't just let them keep getting away with this. What do you think about that, Lynn?
I think you're right in some ways. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, it's tough because it's everybody in those states aren't people there, everyone's not on the same page, right? And it's everybody shouldn't have to pay the consequences of everybody else, right? That's collective punishment in some way, shape, or form. But it's how do we resolve this? Because in January we had a fire and everyone was up in arms about us getting any type of funding, even though we're going to fund ourselves regardless. That's the thing about California. But just the fact that there was so much upheaval and you have Trump coming out here and pretending like we don't have any water and just doing these political theatrics that he always does. And it's but it's you're saying that if we don't do that, if we don't help these people, then if we do help them, then they're not going to learn. But it's I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know, because at the end of the day, there are people that are going to be impacted by that don't have those ideologies, that don't have those sentiments. And at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to the individuals that are making the decisions in those states. I think if you vote against something that helps in a natural disaster, and then a natural disaster hits and you don't have the assistance, I think it should cost you your job. It would cost anybody else their job at any other company,
It won't though. That's
no,
my
it
point.
won't.
Yeah.
It won't. But I'm saying maybe those are types of things we need to explore. These are things that void out these types of positions, because at the end of the day, you can do something. A person in a red state doesn't even have to listen to a constituent to make that decision. They can just make that decision. But if something like that happens under your watch, who's responsible? If we tried to make sure that everyone was taken care of. If the federal government tried to stay in, we're existing right now without FEMA. We're crazy right now. It's like anything could happen. And it's like, yeah, some of these blue states, they got money and they're going to be able to finance the things that they need to finance. And it's these red states, it's like you're seeing your house get washed away. And just last week, you were happy online talking about how people aren't going to have medical care.
Yep.
It's a sick cycle, and I don't know what to do about it. I don't want to be them to show them at the same time. So it's like I get what you're saying, but it's like there has to be some other way, maybe new legislation, maybe new laws, things that we need to discuss in a real time as just maybe as millennials and say, hey, what do we want our world to look like? Because this isn't working for us anymore. And what they have built, these boomers and Gen X, what they built, we don't want it. So I really don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I'm assuming you're talking to me there.
Yes, I'm talking.
Yeah. No, so I disagree with DJ because here's the thing. Suffering doesn't make people better. Suffering just makes people suffer. And if you were to revoke funding from the red states, that's going to lead to a lower educated population. It's going to lead to a more impoverished population. It's going to lead to all of the things that make people vote Republican more, and I don't think that that's actually the answer. Although I do agree with the sentiment of there is a distinct issue with red states being more subsidized by the federal government, but thinking that the opposite is true. And that to me is a propaganda problem. Like that to me, the Democrats, the left side out in general, has this issue with propaganda. It's this dirty word to them. And I don't know why. My day job is in marketing. What I do every day is I serve ads to people. And the thing that we understand in marketing is that no one is ever going to listen to an ad unless they are at the correct moment in their lives to need whatever it is you're selling. And that's one of the issues we were talking about a little bit yesterday about how if this happened under Joe Biden, if Joe Biden had defunded NOAA and then immediately a flood happened and it killed a bunch of little girls, we would know what those little girls' names were. We know what their faces look like, just like we know who Laken Riley is. And there should be already, and there isn't, but like there should have already been a plan. We knew this was going to happen. We knew at some point there would be a natural disaster, which was a direct result of a lack of funding for NOAA. And there should have been already campaigns set up. There should be billboards all over that town already with the faces and names of little girls and the amount of money that Donald Trump cut from NOAA, directly communicating this tangible impact. It was one of the problems with the Inflation Reduction Act. They put a couple like signs up like, hey, this is what Joe Biden did. But it was like 3 years after the act was passed, no one made the fucking connection. It needs to be immediate. When those people are reeling and they see all this destruction in their community, that's when you hit them. Unfortunately, they're not. We don't have those messaging apparatuses set up and ready to go to hit these people when they're going to be receptive to the message. And I think that's a big part of the problem. I have seen more spin from the right wing about the Texas flooding disaster than I've seen from the left wing. And maybe that's just my algorithm. I don't fucking know, but I don't think it is. I think it's because we haven't, and by we, I mean, all of the funding and messaging platforms of the Democratic Party have not been attacking this for reasons that don't make sense to me. And if that's the case, if you never actually get these people where they are, when they are most likely to actually be receptive to information, you're just never going to get them. And we're going to keep going through this cycle. End of this show. I'm John Cooper, Counterpoint Politics, here with the left wing, here to say if you were able to watch our misunderstood media draft and you had any disagreements about it, please let us know in the comments, because we cannot wait to roast you next episode. If you loved our guest today, Politic and Lynn, please tell our audience where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram or on TikTok at Politic and Lynn. I'll be around. I'll be around. You can find me.
Thank you so much, Lynn. That was fantastic. You can find John Cooper, Counterpoint Politics, on Instagram, on Threads, and on TikTok and YouTube. You can find me, Powers Taken Not Given, on the same platforms. Where you will not find me is your local library. So we'll catch you guys later. See you next time, folks. Good game, folks. Good game. That was fun.